tutorial, we will be taking a look at some document basics. How do we save? How do we create a new document? What do we save it as? What are the different color mode options? Document settings. Let's go ahead and let's figure out how to do this. To do this, first of all, what we're going to do is let's learn how to create a new document. You can either go File, New, or, as I'm a big fan, Command N. We'll do the same thing and it'll bring up our new document dialog box. First of all, what do we want to name our document? We'll just go ahead and do test document. First of all, it's going to ask for new document profile. It's going to ask you, they have some presets that you can do in here if you're doing video or mobile devices, web. Underneath the web they have different sizes. Sometimes those are very nice to use. Sometimes I'll use them, sometimes I won't. But if you wanted, you can come down and set your own custom settings. So let's go ahead and let's say I'm doing a poster that it's going to be printed on a 8.5 by 11 sheet. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and change my units to inches. And I'm going to change my width to, let's see, I'm going to want an inch margin on each side. So I'm going to do 7.5 inches by 10. Then it's going to ask for my color mode. Now, if you're not familiar with color modes, this may be an option that you want to do some more research on. You either have your RGB, which is red, green, and blue. It's a bigger range of colors, whereas CMYK, which is cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, is a little bit smaller range of colors. However, with most post-production things, printing and such, you'll want to eventually save it out as CMYK because that's what most printers will print in. So get with your printer that you're working with to see if CMYK is an option you want to use. Your raster effects, if you're using Adobe Illustrator, does have some raster effects like drop shadows and stuff like that. If you are going to be using those, you may want to change it to 300 ppi because the quality will be a little bit better. But depending on your purposes, whether it's for print or for the web, you may want to play with those. You have a few different options. You have medium at 150 ppi and then screen for 72 ppi for things like the web and such. If you're not real familiar with those things, again, those are things that you may want to research on your own. Preview mode, I never mess with that. Don't mess with that at all. Let's go ahead and click OK. And lo and behold, as you can see, it creates a new document for me. And from here I can start to work. I have my paste space over here outside the square, and I also have my canvas area where I can work within the square. Now, let's say that later on down the road I decide I need it to be a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller. Am I out of luck? Absolutely not. At this point you can still change it. Simply go to File, Document Setup, and again it brings up this dialog box that will allow us to change our settings in the way we want things to be laid out. So from here you can go ahead and change your options. I'm going to go ahead and cancel that because at this point I don't want to do that. Also, let's say we want to change our color mode later on down the road. What you want to do is go File, Document Color Mode, and I can now change it to CMYK. If I wanted to change it back to RGB, it's the exact same thing. File, Document Color Mode, click on RGB. One thing to note, and I'll note this twice in the tutorials because I've had some struggles with this as I was learning. If you ever have problems with color showing up, if even though you marked it as RGB or CMYK and things are still coming through grayscale, black and white and shades of gray, go over to your color palette here on the right hand side, and next to it there is a drop down that has different options. If you click on that on the right hand corner of that palette, you can see that I have RGB selected, but let's say that you have a particular piece of art that keeps coming in grayscale. Click on that item, come over to this palette, and you can change it to one of the color palettes that you need. Finally, let's take a look at saving our document. This is easily done. We can either go File, Save, or if you're into quick key functions, Command S, and it brings up our save option. From here we can save things where we want. It works like any other file manager, so go ahead and create folders, name it whatever you want. I'm going to go ahead and keep it as test document. Now a .ai is a .illustrator file. I do not save in Illustrator as a .ai very often because I like my clients and I like to be able to preview things easily and send these to people that maybe don't have Illustrator so that they can view them. So the most common file type I save as is a PDF. If you come down to the format here, you can click Adobe PDF. This is my preferred type. I'm going to go ahead and click Save in this point. I'll just save it to my desktop. And a dialog box for your PDF settings comes up. For the most part, you don't need to mess with a lot of things here. This drop down box sometimes I will use if I'm sending it to print. You can do high quality for print. That's probably what I would leave it on for the most part. You can change what compatibility you want it to be with, which Acrobat readers, what versions do you want it to be compatible with. I usually don't mess with too many things here. The thing I make sure, there's two boxes. One, there's Preserve Illustrator Editing Capabilities. If you leave this checked, then that means someone else could open this PDF in Illustrator and be able to edit and manipulate your file. But this is something you most likely will want to keep checked for yourself, because if you uncheck this and save this as a PDF, you won't be able to go back in later and edit your file. So make sure that you check Preserve Illustrator Editing Capabilities if you intend on coming back to this file to make edits. And then finally, Optimize for Fast Web View. This is going to do some compression. So for the most part, if I'm sending this to print, I definitely want to check this off because I don't want it to do any compression. I want the highest resolution I can get. But if you're sending this to a client or to a friend just to view it and see if it looks okay, and you want the file to be smaller and quicker and easy to load and download and read, you can go ahead and click that. When you're done, just go ahead and click Save PDF and you'll be good to go. So that gives you an idea of how to save and set up your document. I don't do a lot of other fancy things. If you're into web design, one thing you might want to think about also is the file and then save for web and devices. It works similar to the save as for web and devices as Photoshop. I do most of my web stuff in Photoshop, so I don't have a lot of recommendations for Illustrator, but if you're interested in doing maybe your tabs or buttons within Illustrator, you have that option to save it out so that it can compress for quick upload and download on the web. So that should give you an idea, and we will take a closer look at some of these options maybe a little bit more down the road.